My name is Dr. Michael Norton. I'm a reader in Sociology and Law at the University of Bristol, and I'm also the founder and director of Innocence Network UK. I've been working as an academic for 20 years on the problem of miscarriages of justice. I look at all aspects of this problem. I look at it from in terms of prisoners maintaining innocence and the problems that they face in prison as a prisoner maintaining innocence, as opposed to a prisoner who accepts their guilt. They are very, very different experiences. Prisons are meant for people who are guilty. Prisons are not meant for people who are innocent. So innocent people don't fit into prison because all of the systems are for rehabilitation of guilty people. So I look at this problem. I also look at the causes of wrongful convictions. I look at criminal procedure. I look at the social and psychological harms to prisoners and to victims of wrongful convictions and wrongful imprisonment. I look at the legal system in terms of the remedies which exist, which claim to be attempting to overturn wrongful convictions when they occur. And I'm also looking at the Criminal Cases Review Commission that we have in our society, which attempts to overturn wrongful convictions when they occur. I think the first thing to say when we're thinking about the criminal justice system, whether it be in the United Kingdom or it be in Armenia or it be in America or anywhere in the world, is all criminal justice systems are imperfect. All criminal justice systems are flawed. And they're flawed for a number of reasons. They are flawed because of intent. So you need to make a distinction between wrongful convictions which are caused by intent and wrongful convictions which are caused unintentionally. So all of the, no matter how well you make legislation, law, as we move forward with law, we realise that there are gaps within the law through which innocent people can be wrongly convicted. So for instance, people can act in good faith. Somebody can give expert evidence that could be based on the state of scientific knowledge at that time, whether it be about fingerprints, whether it be about fibres, whether it be about hairs, whether it be about bite marks, whether it be about blood. We know that all of this science, it develops over time. So people can give evidence in a criminal trial, and then 5 years, 10 years, even 1 year later, there can be a breakthrough in science which calls into question the validity and reliability of the previous science. So these type of miscarriages of justice happen all the time. It's not just physical evidences, it's also we learn through psychology about how we can, how we undertake eyewitness identification evidence. So the way that we do ID parades in the UK, for example, is very different than we did 10, 20 years ago. So you've got to have proper procedures in place so you don't bias the eyewitness identification. The way that we take suspect evidence from witnesses and suspects now, we're also very, very aware of different psychological personality types. There are different personality types. Some people are very compliant. Some people want to please the person who's asking them the questions. And the more time they get asked the question, the more inclined they are to agree with the questioner because they want to get out of this coercive situation. It doesn't mean to say that what they're saying is the truth. We've worked on many cases of people who confessed to crimes, who did not commit the crime. It's a very difficult thing for people to understand. And when a jury hears that someone has confessed to a crime, or when a jury hears that someone has identified someone for a crime, it's very strong evidence. Even though the data, the statistics show that eyewitness identification is one of the least reliable forms of evidence in the world. 70% of the cases of people who've been proven to be factually innocent, the only evidence against them was eyewitness identification, and it's been proven to be wrong. 30% of the people who've been proven to be innocent made a confession, and it's been proven to be wrong. But yet they got convicted on that. So I did some research on this because I wanted to get some data, some statistics on, how big is this problem? What are the sticking points? How could we help the prisoners to get out of prison, even if we cannot overturn their case, to try to help them to get out? And I did this research and I found all of these reasons. They will not admit their guilt. Their appeal lawyer says to them, you cannot admit your guilt, otherwise you give up your hopes of winning your appeal. And I published this. Even though we have 5,000 successful appeals every year in the UK, there seems to be a kind of contradiction, what you call a paradox. There's all these successful appeals, and yet the parole board is saying, no, the courts are always correct. So I was invited down to London to talk about my work, and then when we get there, I do the presentation the way that I just said to you, and total silence. So I'm sitting there like this, don't know what's going to happen next. And I said, why am I here? Have I to just go home now? Silent. And then I said, come on, you must say something. I came down to London today. I'm wearing my best suit. I paid for my own train fare. I'm giving you a day of my life. I mean, what is going on? You already read my research. Now you made me tell you my research. You told a prison magazine that you're meeting with me. Well, we're meeting now. What do we do? And then one of them said, we have done our homework on you, Dr. Norton. You are enemy of the state. And I was totally silent. Enemy of the state? Yes, you are a troublemaker. And I said to them, if this is your homework for my course in the University of Bristol, you're failing the assignment. You are a weak student. They're looking at me. I said, I'm not a troublemaker. I'm a troubleshooter. I'm a social scientist. I'm doing social legal research. These problems exist. I'm just doing research on them and I'm bringing them to your attention. This is not troublemaking. This is troubleshooting. I want to make the system better. This is my system. This is my country. This is my mother. This is my children. This is my brother. I want the system to be the best it can be. And then they changed their attitude. They started to see. So what happened in the UK was many cases were building up. The politicians were refusing to overturn the cases because at that time it was the politicians who had the authority to make a decision about if a case went back to the court. And we needed to have an independent body. So there was 22 cases which were offered to the government. It was the media that made many programs about those cases. They sensitized our public. They educated our public. So our public were very aware and very alive to the reality of wrongful convictions. And the government couldn't refuse. The government was totally embarrassed. And there was a review of our criminal justice system. It was called the Royal Commission on Criminal Justice. And then the finding of this review was that there needed to be something independent, that we couldn't trust politicians with these cases of innocent people in prison because the politicians were reluctant to send the cases back. So we now have this independent body. And the independent body, everybody must comply with the commission, the CCRC, the Criminal Cases Review Commission. If the police, the prosecutors, the forensic scientists, they all have to work with the CCRC to find the truth of the case. Each year, about 20 serious cases are overturned by the CCRC. So we have 1.5 million cases each year, convictions, 5,000 successful appeals through our normal appeal system, and 20 cases overturned through the Criminal Cases Review Commission. These are the difficult cases, the cases that a legal system can't deal with. They throw up new issues, political questions, non-legal issues that we need something else for, and this is the Criminal Cases Review Commission. Now, I understand through my time in Armenia that you are a new democracy, you are a new society. You're only 20 years old. And there seems to be a paradox for me because everybody we've spoken to, I was here 3 years ago and I've been here now for a week meeting people in the Ministry of Justice, I've been meeting investigators, I've been meeting the academics, I've been meeting ordinary members of the public. And people say, we need to change our system because our previous system was unjust. Okay, but we don't want to look backwards and correct the previous injustice cases. It doesn't make any sense. So what they're saying is, let's put new legislation in to stop injustices going forward, and let's forget about the injustices of the past. Well, they tried to do that in the UK. And what happened is the public are so aware that there were injustices in the past. Everybody in Armenia knows that under the previous system there was injustice. People convicted on fabricated evidence. People convicted on just one person saying something against another person. Legitimate criminal justice systems do not convict somebody just on the word of somebody else. I could make an allegation against you. Yeah. How can you prove you didn't do it? It's just my word against your word. And a modern legal system knows that this leaves everybody vulnerable. So the jury just believes who? The most important person. So if a police officer says I did something, even if I didn't do it, what, it's true? No, we need evidence. We need corroboration evidence. We need forensic evidence, we need corroboration evidence, so we need CCTV, we need eyewitness identification, we need trace evidence. People say to me, what can we do about the historic cases, the convictions under the old system? Well, this is my idea, okay? You may not have evidence in some of those cases because the evidence was destroyed. This in itself is suspicious. Why would you destroy evidence? You would only destroy evidence, I think, because you don't want anybody to see. So if Armenia wants to show its civil society, its public, that it is having a break with the past system, the old system that everybody says is unjust, and it wants to move to a new system that has true legitimacy, it has to give an amnesty to these cases. Not all of the cases. All the cases should be reviewed by an independent body, and if the evidence against them is flimsy or unreliable, even if there's no documents, you know what evidence was claimed against him in his trial. And you need to deal with those cases first, because they will drag you back. You will not be able to move forward because these cases will not go away.